Self-reliance is the foundation of all true strength. When you depend on others for your happiness, for your stability, or even for your direction in life, you build your house on unstable ground. People can leave, situations can change, promises can be broken. But when you root yourself in your own strength, you cannot be shaken by the storms outside. The one who depends on himself is unmovable, because his power does not come from another's support, but from his own discipline. To rely on yourself does not mean isolation or arrogance. It means that your center is so strong, so grounded, that you do not collapse when the world refuses to hold you up. Self-reliance is not about pushing others away, but about standing so firmly on your own feet that even if everyone walks away, you remain whole and unbroken. To be self-reliant is to be free. The moment you stop expecting someone to save you, you unlock the door to your own potential. Weakness comes not from being alone, but from fearing it. When you fear being without support, you give away your power, and in that moment, you become a prisoner to others' choices. The one who has mastered self-reliance walks with confidence, because he knows that his stability comes from his own discipline. He is like a mountain. Others may come to sit at its base, others may leave when the weather changes, but the mountain remains unmoved. Strength is not tested when people stand with you. Strength is proven when you stand, even when no one else is there. That is why true power begins the day you decide, no one owes me anything, and still I will rise. Many people confuse self-reliance with loneliness. They think that standing alone means you are abandoned, forgotten, or rejected. But this is a misunderstanding. Loneliness is when you crave the presence of others, but do not have it. Self-reliance is when you no longer need their presence to feel whole. There is a deep difference. Loneliness is empty, self-reliance is full. Loneliness is hunger, self-reliance is fullness of spirit. When you train yourself to depend on no one, you no longer live in fear of being left behind. You realize that companionship is a blessing, but not a necessity. You stop begging for attention, for validation, for approval. Instead, you carry yourself with dignity, knowing that your worth does not decrease if someone fails to recognize it. And in this way, you discover a rare kind of freedom to walk alone, yet not feel alone. The path to self-reliance is not easy because it requires honesty. It demands that you stop blaming others for your failures, and it forces you to accept responsibility for your own life. This is where many people fall, because it is far easier to point outward than inward. But a warrior of the spirit knows blaming others keeps you weak. Taking responsibility makes you strong. When you stop waiting for someone to rescue you, you begin rescuing yourself. When you stop waiting for the world to give you opportunities, you create them yourself. In that moment, you no longer live like a leaf carried by the wind. You live like the wind itself, shaping your path. The discipline of self-reliance transforms weakness into strength and strength into freedom. This is why the one who is self-reliant does not beg, does not chase, and does not break. True self-reliance comes from discipline, not from pride. It is built in the silence of early mornings, in the effort no one else sees, in the choices you make when no one is watching. It is not about showing the world you can stand alone. It is about knowing within yourself that you already can. A tree does not shout about its roots, but those roots are what allow it to stand through storms. In the same way, your strength lies not in boasting, but in building a foundation so solid that nothing can uproot you. Others may admire you, others may misunderstand you, but it does not matter. What matters is that your inner structure is complete. You may receive help, but you do not rely on it. You may welcome companionship, but you are not weakened without it. This is self-reliance, silent, disciplined, and unshakable. There is a deep peace in self-reliance because it frees you from constant disappointment. When you expect others to always support you, you place weight upon them that they cannot carry. People will fail, not because they wish to, but because they are human. If you tie your happiness to them, you will suffer endlessly. But when you anchor your happiness in yourself, no one can take it away. You stop demanding from others, and you begin giving to yourself. You stop asking, why didn't they help me? And you start asking, what can I do right now? This change of perspective is powerful because it turns weakness into strength and dependency into freedom. The one who is self-reliant no longer carries bitterness because he has no expectations to be broken. His peace is untouched because it was never placed in another's hands. Self-reliance also builds respect. When you stand firm in yourself, people begin to see you differently. They recognize your discipline, your independence, your unshakable nature. This respect is not demanded, it is earned. The person who constantly begs for attention, support, or validation weakens their own image. But the one who relies on himself commands quiet respect because he is not easily swayed, not easily broken. In this world, strength attracts while weakness repels. But true strength does not need to shout. It is recognized in silence. When people see that you are not desperate for them, when they realize you will walk your path, whether they walk beside you or not, they cannot help but respect you. And more importantly, you begin to respect yourself. Self-reliance is not only outer strength, it is inner dignity. To live with self-reliance is to live with freedom. You are no longer controlled by the opinions of others, no longer chained by the fear of abandonment, no longer weakened by the absence of support. You begin to move through life with clarity because your direction does not depend on approval. This freedom is rare in the modern world, where people constantly seek validation through praise, attention, and recognition. But the self-reliant one understands recognition is temporary, but inner strength is eternal. When you rely on yourself, you are not distracted by the noise of others. You do not chase shadows. You walk toward light. Your choices become clearer, your path more direct, your spirit lighter. In this freedom, you are untouchable because nothing outside of you has the power to control what is already rooted within. Self-reliance is a lifelong practice. It must be nurtured, trained, and protected just like the body and the mind. You cannot expect to wake up one day fully free of dependency. It is a gradual process built day by day. Each time you take responsibility instead of blaming, you grow stronger. Each time you stand tall instead of leaning, you grow freer. Each time you choose discipline instead of excuses, you become more unshakable. Over time, self-reliance becomes not only a skill but a way of being. It shapes your character, it sharpens your spirit, and it elevates your life. And when people see you standing strong, not because of what you received, but because of what you built within yourself, they will know here is someone who does not depend on the world, but carries the world within. That is true mastery. At the end of the path, you will realize that self-reliance is not about rejecting others, but about discovering your own wholeness. You are not incomplete without others. You are already complete within yourself. Others may walk beside you, they may share your journey, but they are not the source of your strength. The source of your strength lies in your own discipline, your own spirit, your own ability to stand when everything else falls. This is why self-reliance is true strength. It cannot be taken, it cannot be broken, it cannot be lost. It is yours, built with your own effort, carried with your own spirit. When you walk this path, you walk with freedom, with dignity, with unshakable peace, and you realize the greatest power is not in leaning on others, but in standing alone, whole, strong, and free. Detachment is not coldness, nor is it a lack of care. It is wisdom. It is the understanding that the more you cling, the more you suffer. Expectations are chains. When you bind yourself to people, to outcomes, to situations, you make your peace dependent on things you cannot control. And when those expectations are not met, disappointment cuts deeply. Detachment frees you from this cycle. It does not mean you stop loving or caring. It means you stop expecting. You give without demanding. You care without clinging. You love without imprisoning. When you learn detachment, you realize that disappointment only comes from attachment to what is outside of you. By loosening your grip, by letting go of the need to control, you become free. Detachment is not a rejection of life. It is the art of walking through life without being broken by its unpredictability. Many people confuse detachment with indifference, but they are opposites. Indifference is apathy. It is the absence of care. Detachment is strength. It is the ability to care deeply while remaining free from suffering. Imagine holding a butterfly in your hand. If you grip too tightly, you kill it. If you hold it gently, it rests with you. Detachment is that gentle hold. It allows you to experience people, opportunities, and moments without crushing them under the weight of your expectations. When you cling to someone, you demand they act according to your desires, and when they don't, pain arises. But if you allow them to be free, and allow yourself to be free, you escape the prison of disappointment. Detachment transforms relationships because it removes the poison of expectation and replaces it with the purity of acceptance. Only then can love and respect flow without condition. Disappointment is always born from attachment. When you expect someone to always support you, to never betray you, to always understand you, you set yourself up for suffering. People are human, not perfect. They will falter, they will forget, they will fail. If your happiness is tied to their consistency, you will break each time they do. But if you are detached, you no longer demand perfection. You appreciate their presence, but you are not destroyed by their absence. You welcome their loyalty, but you do not collapse if they falter. Detachment creates resilience because it teaches you to flow with change rather than fight it. When you stop expecting, life surprises you in better ways. What comes is a gift, what goes is a lesson. Disappointment fades because you are no longer chasing permanence in an impermanent world. You see clearly. Everything is borrowed, nothing is owed. Detachment does not make you weaker, it makes you stronger. People believe that being attached is a sign of love, but in truth, it is a sign of fear. Fear of loss, fear of rejection, fear of being alone. This fear is disguised as attachment, but it only brings suffering. A detached mind does not cling in fear, it stands in strength. It says, if you stay, I am grateful. If you leave, I remain whole. Such freedom cannot be broken, because your sense of self is no longer bound to another. Detachment builds unshakable strength, because you are no longer controlled by the presence or absence of people, wealth or recognition. What is yours cannot be taken, and what leaves was never truly yours. The detached spirit lives with lightness, because he does not chain himself to what cannot be controlled. That is true inner power. Attachment is like grasping water in your hand. The tighter you hold, the faster it slips away. Life is always changing. People are always moving. Circumstances are always shifting. Nothing stays the same, no matter how much you want it to. When you try to force permanence, you create suffering. Detachment accepts impermanence. It understands that change is not betrayal, but the natural rhythm of life. When you learn to release your grip, you stop fighting against reality. You flow with life instead of against it. This does not mean you stop working hard or stop caring. It means you stop suffering when life moves differently than you planned. Detachment allows you to enjoy the present without fearing the future, to appreciate people without demanding they stay forever. And in this acceptance, you find peace. You stop being wounded by life because you no longer resist its truth. Detachment also brings clarity. When you are attached, your mind becomes clouded by desire and fear. You see not what is, but what you wish it to be. This distortion blinds you, making decisions emotional rather than wise. Detachment clears this fog. When you are not bound by attachment, you see people as they truly are, not as you imagine them to be. You make choices based on truth, not illusion. You stop chasing what is harmful simply because you are attached, and you stop fearing loss because you understand nothing is permanent. This clarity sharpens your spirit. It allows you to cut through confusion, to make decisions with wisdom, and to live with balance. Detachment is the lens that reveals reality as it is, not as you demand it to be. And when you see clearly, you no longer fall into the trap of disappointment. Relationships become healthier with detachment. Attachment breeds control. You want others to behave, think, and act in ways that fit your expectations. When they don't, conflict arises. Detachment removes this poison. It allows people to be themselves and you to remain at peace. You no longer tie your happiness to their behavior. You find it within yourself. This freedom allows true connection because it is no longer built on demand, but on respect. When you are detached, you love without chains. You say, I am with you not because I need you, but because I choose to be. That choice is powerful. It creates relationships free from manipulation, free from fear, free from disappointment. With detachment, you no longer chase validation from others. Instead, you give freely, and whatever comes back is received with gratitude, not as an entitlement, but as a gift. Detachment also protects your inner peace. When you live with attachment, your emotions rise and fall with the actions of others. A word can wound you, an absence can break you, a betrayal can destroy you. You live as if your peace belongs to the world, not to yourself. But with detachment, you reclaim your peace. You no longer hand it over to people, to circumstances, to outcomes. You carry it within, untouched by the storms around you. This does not mean you are numb. It means you are balanced. You can feel joy, but you do not cling to it. You can feel pain, but you do not drown in it. Detachment is the shield of the spirit. It allows you to walk through fire without being burned, because your peace is no longer controlled by what is outside. It is anchored within. Learning detachment is a discipline. It does not happen overnight, and it requires constant practice. The mind naturally clings, naturally desires, naturally fears. Detachment is the art of training the mind to release. Each time you catch yourself expecting too much, you breathe and let go. Each time you feel disappointment, you trace it back to the attachment that created it, and you learn. Over time, detachment becomes your natural state. You begin to live lighter, freer, calmer. You no longer carry the heavy chains of should and must. Instead, you walk with openness, knowing that life is not here to serve your desires, but to teach you. With discipline, detachment becomes not a burden, but a blessing. It becomes the way you protect your peace and maintain your strength in a world that constantly shifts. At the end, detachment teaches the deepest truth. Nothing belongs to you, and that is why everything can be enjoyed. People, moments, opportunities, they all come and go. To cling is to suffer, but to let go is to be free. Detachment prevents disappointment because it removes the false belief that life owes you permanence. It does not. What comes is a gift, what stays is a blessing, what leaves is a lesson. When you live with this awareness, you are never broken by loss, nor poisoned by expectation. You remain steady, peaceful, and whole. Detachment is not the end of love, it is the beginning of true love. Because it is love without chains. It is not the end of life, it is the beginning of real life. Because it allows you to live fully in the present, without fear of tomorrow. Inner peace is not something you find outside. It is something you cultivate inside. Many people search for peace in external things, in possessions, in relationships, in status, in recognition. But these are fragile. They rise and fall, they appear and disappear. If your peace depends on them, then your peace will always be unstable. True peace is built inside, in a place no one can touch. It comes from self-discipline, from clarity, from alignment between thought and action. When you discover this, you stop chasing and you start cultivating. You realize that peace is not waiting for you at the end of success. It is already inside, waiting for you to uncover it. To depend on the outer world for peace is like building a house on shifting sand. But to build it within yourself is to stand on unshakable rock. The greatest mistake people make is believing that others are responsible for their peace. They think, if this person treats me right, I will feel calm, or if life gives me what I want, I will feel at ease. But peace that depends on others will always be broken. People will not always act as you wish. Life will not always unfold according to your plans. If you tie your peace to these things, then you hand your inner stability to forces beyond your control. But when you anchor peace inside yourself, you are free. You are no longer shaken by the storms outside. You no longer wait for perfect conditions to be calm. You create calmness regardless of conditions. Inner peace is the gift you give yourself when you stop expecting the world to keep you balanced and you choose to balance yourself. Inner peace is a discipline, not a coincidence. It does not appear suddenly, it is cultivated through practice. Just as the body must be trained to become strong, the mind must be trained to become still. Without training, the mind runs wild, chasing desires, resisting pain, clinging to illusions. This is the root of inner chaos. But when you train the mind through awareness, through stillness, through letting go, you begin to uncover peace. It is not something new you create. It is something that was always there, hidden beneath noise. Imagine a lake when disturbed. Its surface is chaotic, but when still, it reflects perfectly. Your mind is the same. Peace comes not from adding more, but from removing what disturbs it. This is why meditation, discipline, and awareness are so powerful. They do not give you peace, they reveal the peace that was always within. When you rely on external conditions for peace, you create endless suffering. You say, when I have more money, I will relax. When I achieve success, I will feel calm. When others approve of me, I will be happy. But once you achieve one thing, the mind moves to the next. Peace keeps slipping further away, like a horizon you never reach. This is the trap of external dependency. But when you turn inward, you see the truth. Peace does not come after conditions are met. Peace comes when you stop making it conditional. You can be calm without wealth, without applause, without perfection. You can be calm right now, simply by choosing to let go of craving and resistance. The world cannot always give you what you want, but it cannot take your inner stillness unless you hand it away. Peace is already yours. Inner peace also requires detachment from ego. The ego constantly demands recognition, validation, and superiority. It says, I will only be at peace when others see my worth, when I am ahead, when I am praised. This constant hunger disturbs the spirit. As long as ego leads, peace will remain far away. True inner peace arises when you quiet the ego's demands. You no longer need to prove yourself, no longer need to compare, no longer need to chase endless approval. Instead, you rest in your own being, knowing that your value is not determined by external applause. When you release the ego's illusions, you uncover stillness that was hidden beneath. Peace is not in becoming more. It is in needing less. The ego will always chase, but the soul is already complete. When you return to this completeness, you discover a peace that never leaves. Inner peace is not the absence of challenge, but the ability to remain steady within it. Many people believe peace means a life without conflict, without hardship, without pain. But such a life does not exist. Storms will come, losses will arrive, difficulties will test you. If you believe peace depends on avoiding these, you will forever be restless. True peace is the calm within the storm. It is the ability to stand still while the winds blow. It is not about escaping life, but about engaging with it without losing your center. Imagine a candle flame in the wind. If it is weak, it will be extinguished, but if it is strong, it will continue burning. Inner peace is that strong flame. It is the strength to remain calm, not because life is easy, but because your spirit is steady. This is mastery. The search for inner peace requires silence. The modern world is loud. It pulls your mind outward with endless distractions, demands, and noise. If you never turn inward, you will never hear the quiet voice of peace. Silence is not just the absence of sound, it is the space where the spirit can breathe. It is in silence that you notice your thoughts, your emotions, your attachments. It is in silence that you realize how often you disturb yourself with unnecessary noise. Inner peace is discovered in stillness when you step back from the world's chaos and return to your own center. A few moments of silence each day can transform your entire life because they remind you that peace is always within reach. It does not require travel, wealth, or recognition. It requires presence. To find peace, you must first be willing to sit in silence with yourself. Inner peace also comes from alignment. When your thoughts, words, and actions are in harmony, the spirit rests. But when you think one thing, say another, and do a third, you create inner conflict. This conflict disturbs peace. Many people live this way, pretending to be what they are not, chasing goals that do not match their values, speaking words that do not match their heart. This creates tension, guilt, and unrest. But when you live in alignment, when your actions match your values, you feel at ease within yourself. You do not need to pretend. You do not need to chase illusions. You walk with honesty, and honesty brings peace. Inner peace is not only about meditation, it is about integrity. When you live truthfully, without contradiction, you sleep peacefully, you breathe lightly, you walk freely. Peace comes when you no longer betray yourself. Gratitude is also a doorway to inner peace. The restless mind always wants more. It says, I will only be at peace when I have what I do not yet have. This endless craving disturbs the spirit. But gratitude interrupts this cycle. It shifts your focus from what is missing to what is present. It reminds you that peace is not found in acquiring more, but in appreciating what already is. A grateful heart is a peaceful heart because it no longer chases endlessly. Instead of, I will be happy when, it says, I am content now. This does not mean you stop growing or stop striving, but it means you stop tying your peace to future conditions. Gratitude grounds you in the present, and in the present you always have enough. Peace blossoms naturally when you see life not as lacking, but as a gift. At the end of the journey, you realize that inner peace is not something you search for. It is something you uncover. It was always within you, beneath the noise, the craving, the fear, the ego. The world may shake, people may leave, circumstances may change, but inner peace remains if you protect it. It is the greatest treasure because it cannot be stolen, it cannot be broken, it cannot be lost. But it requires practice, discipline, and awareness. You must choose it daily, cultivate it daily, guard it daily. And when you do, you live with a calmness that no storm can disturb. This is the truth. Peace will never come from outside. It must come from within. And once you discover it, you realize that nothing else is greater, because a peaceful spirit is the strongest spirit, unshakable and free. Walking alone does not mean living in isolation. It means building the courage to walk your path without fear of being unsupported. Too many people refuse to move because they are waiting for company, waiting for approval, waiting for someone to walk beside them. But if you always wait, your life will never begin. Freedom begins when you say, even if no one comes with me, I will walk. This is the spirit of independence. When you can walk alone, you no longer depend on others to validate your journey. You carry your own fire, and that fire guides you even in darkness. Walking alone is not loneliness, it is strength. It is proof that you are complete within yourself, not needing the constant reassurance of others. And once you master walking alone, you realize that freedom was never about numbers. It was about inner courage. The one who walks alone builds resilience. When you constantly walk with others, you may unconsciously lean on them. You depend on their encouragement, their company, their approval. But when the time comes to stand alone, you tremble because your strength was borrowed. Walking alone forces you to rely only on yourself. It teaches you to endure silence, to carry your own weight, to face your fears without distraction. And in this silence, You find strength you did not know you had. It is only when the crutches are removed that you discover how strong your legs truly are. Walking alone reveals to you your hidden potential because it strips away dependency. It is not a punishment, it is training. It shapes your spirit to become unshakable so that when life tests you, you stand like a mountain, firm, steady, unmovable. Walking alone also builds clarity. When surrounded by crowds, voices constantly pull you in different directions. Opinions, judgments, and expectations cloud your mind. You begin to question yourself, not because you lack wisdom, but because you are drowned by noise. But when you walk alone, the noise fades. You begin to hear your own voice, the voice of your intuition, your inner teacher. This voice is often silenced in the chaos of company, but in solitude, it becomes clear. Freedom comes when you follow this voice, not the opinions of the world. You stop living to please others and begin living in alignment with your own truth. Walking alone is the path of clarity because it allows you to separate your true desires from the borrowed desires of the crowd. Only when you hear yourself clearly can you live authentically, and authenticity is the highest freedom. Many fear walking alone because they confuse it with rejection. They think, if no one walks with me, it means I am unwanted, unloved, forgotten. But this is not truth. This is the illusion of attachment. Walking alone does not mean you are abandoned. It means you are free. It means your journey is so important that you will not pause it simply because others are not ready. It means you respect your own path enough to continue forward, even when it is unpopular or misunderstood. Every great spirit in history walked alone at some point because they saw what others could not yet see. Freedom requires courage, and courage often feels lonely. But in time, those who walk alone inspire others to follow. Walking alone is not rejection. It is leadership. It is the mark of someone who values truth over comfort, vision over approval. Walking alone builds freedom because it breaks dependency on external approval. When you walk with the crowd, you feel safe because you are not questioned. But you are also trapped because you cannot deviate without fear of judgment. Walking alone removes this prison. You no longer need permission to move, to grow, to choose differently. You stop asking, will they agree? Will they approve? And instead ask, is this true to me? That shift is liberation. Freedom is not found in pleasing everyone. It is found in having the courage to displease them when necessary. Walking alone does not mean you are against others. It means you are for yourself. And when you are truly for yourself, you stop betraying your soul for temporary approval. This is why walking alone is powerful. It teaches you that your worth is not measured by applause, but by authenticity. Silence is the companion of those who walk alone, and in silence you meet yourself. Many fear this silence because within it they hear their unhealed wounds, their hidden doubts, their inner shadows. But facing these is necessary for growth. Walking alone forces you into this encounter, and though it may be uncomfortable, it is transformative. You learn that you are stronger than your fears, wiser than your doubts, and deeper than your wounds. You begin to discover peace, not in the absence of noise, but in the presence of stillness. Freedom comes when silence no longer scares you, but strengthens you. The one who can walk in silence without fear has mastered themselves. And the one who masters themselves is truly free because they are no longer slaves to noise, distraction, or validation. Solitude becomes not emptiness, but a well of inner strength. Walking alone builds discipline. Without others to push you, to remind you, to motivate you, you must create your own fire. This is not easy, but it is powerful. Discipline born from self-reliance is stronger than motivation borrowed from others. When you walk alone, you are forced to wake yourself, to move yourself, to challenge yourself. And in doing so, you become unstoppable. Others may fail to show up, but you will not because you have trained yourself to rely on no one. Discipline built in solitude is unshakable because it does not depend on the encouragement of others. It comes from within. This is why those who can walk alone often rise higher than those who always wait for company. Their discipline makes them free because they no longer need external push. They carry their own momentum, their own unbreakable drive. Freedom also comes from the courage to walk against the crowd. Most people follow the majority, not because it is right, but because it is easy. They fear standing out, fear being questioned, fear being misunderstood. But true freedom cannot exist if you are enslaved by the opinions of the crowd. Walking alone means choosing your own direction, even if it makes you different. It is the strength to say, I will not betray my truth for their comfort. This courage liberates you because you no longer live in chains of conformity. You are free to explore, free to experiment, free to fail, and free to rise again. The path of freedom is rarely crowded because few have the courage to walk it. But the one who dares to walk alone discovers horizons the crowd will never see. Walking alone prepares you for leadership. A leader is not someone who waits for approval. They act from vision. And vision often begins in solitude because it is too vast for the crowd to understand. If you cannot walk alone, you cannot lead, because leadership often means stepping into the unknown without support. But once you master this, you are no longer afraid of loneliness. You realize that solitude is where strength is born. And from this strength, you lead not because others push you, but because your path is clear. Walking alone teaches you to trust yourself, to move with conviction, to act without waiting for applause. That is true leadership. Freedom comes not from following others blindly, but from daring to walk paths unseen, so that one day others may find courage to follow. At the end, walking alone reveals the deepest freedom, the freedom to be yourself. Without dependency, without fear, without needing others to validate your journey. You discover authenticity. You realize you were never truly alone because you always walked with yourself, and yourself is enough. Walking alone does not make you less connected to the world, it makes you more connected to your true spirit. From this connection, you can walk with others freely, not because you need them, but because you choose them. That choice is powerful. It transforms companionship from dependency into strength. The one who can walk alone is never truly trapped, because his freedom does not depend on company, it depends on his courage. Walking alone builds freedom, and freedom builds peace. In this realization, you stand tall, whole, complete, unshakable, free.